Watching women backslide into being dumbasses in 2025 and then using feminist, womanist language and verbiage to justify their dumbassery is astonishing. I'm seeing so many posts from women who are saying that us women who are taking a step back and telling women not to have children and things like that, we're misogynistic now because the language that we're using to describe things like pregnancy and childbirth and child rearing and motherhood are misogynistic. So the societies that make motherhood damn near impossible, if not altogether unpleasant, are not misogynistic. Us women cautioning you against making an unwise decision that you're not prepared for, we're the misogynists. I guess, right? When we're making decisions about bringing human beings into this world, actual living, breathing human beings, we have to examine context. And I'm sorry, context is everything, especially today in 2025, when here in America we have a neo-Nazi human Dorito toupee-wearing sentient cartoon character back in our White House again. Like, we still have the choice to not be mothers. So I think we take for granted that that choice has not always been ours to make. Particularly because those of us who are 40 and under do not have a living memory of a time or a place where choice was not something that we, lacked. We have choices now that our mothers, who are alive and breathing now, didn't have in their youth. I'm 32 years old and I'm child-free. By the time my mom was 32, she was married with a 6-year-old. I was 6 when my mom was 32, and those things were required of her, and she came of age in the 1980s, guys. Like, weaponizing feminist womanist language that arose as a result of the systemic oppression of women to tell other women that we're being misogynistic because we're advising you against having children while you're poor is not what you think it is. It's not. And you can call me eugenics or eugenicist or whatever. You can call me all the names that you're pulling out of your theoretical textbooks. I don't care. Facts are facts. I think too many women, especially in the modern contemporary age, want to force themselves to live in the world that they think should exist rather than living in the world that currently exists. You see what I mean? Like, they want to force their view, force their reality into reality when it's still just a fantasy. It's still just a delusion. And that
the reason why this video, I think, is relevant for me to be able to comment on is because she's mixing 1,000 different talking points all together in order to try to substantiate her argument. So first she justifies how racist and biased and prejudiced she is against Trump, to then set the precedent that the economy and the way in which we live our lives, which Trump has only been in office for 1 month as of recording this video, and that the environment is toxic towards your children, especially when you talk about the racist narratives that's being perpetuated against black people. I'm assuming that's what she's saying. So you throw that into the mix, and then you throw into the mix the economy, and then she throws into the mix traditional values and the fact that she believes that women are or have been oppressed at a period of time and things like that. And so she's using all of these different narratives. And although she sounds intelligent and she can articulate herself really well, it doesn't matter because she's jumping all over the place in order to try to justify an argument that women should be more careful about bringing children into the world, especially when you're poor. You see what I'm saying? So, for example, the fact that you shouldn't bring children into this world when you're poor is a valid argument. However, she's justifying it by using flawed logic. So, for example, she illustrated that, well, her mother had her when she was 26 years old, and so by the time she was 32, she was already 6 years old and all this other type of stuff. But that has nothing to do with whether or not you should bring children into the world when you don't have resources or who's in office. Now, again, we can continue to point out the obvious, that we know that Trump isn't racist. We know that America needs to be audited. We know we need to right-size the government. We know that a lot of people are running in the Victim Olympics. We know that women largely voted for Kamala Harris at a historic clip, unreasonably, just because she was a woman and just because they perceived her to be black. However, that has nothing to do with whether or not you should bring children into this world under duress. I agree that you shouldn't bring women in this world under duress, but I don't agree with her logic and the sentiment behind why she's justifying you shouldn't bring children into this world, it shouldn't be because of the reasons that she's giving. There's nothing wrong with having a child at 26 years old. What I really suspect is the problem, especially with our cultural norms, is that we've normalized this trash culture. We've normalized having children out of wedlock. We've normalized bringing children into the world under duress. We've normalized having children under a single parent household. If you reduce your lifestyle, stop paying attention to what everybody else is doing on Instagram, adjust your standards and your norms according to whatever your environment is, and go outside and, like my girl Molly says, touch grass, I don't think that it should be that big of a problem. There's no reason why a regular middle-class person should not be able to successfully raise their children and survive if they do it the right way. But again, it's all based off of your lifestyle and your cultural norms versus whether or not we have some neo-Nazi person. Stop, bro. Stop. Let's continue.
Then I see some of these same women saying things like, oh, well, if everything is just sucky and if the world is still racist and patriarchal, which it very much is, then why do you bother even trying anyway? Why bother getting a degree? Why bother trying to climb a corporate ladder? Why bother pursuing dreams and ambitions and goals? Why do I still bother pursuing those things? Because none of those things are human beings. Those are inanimate either objects or ideas. None of those things result in a human being being brought to life, whom I now have to house and feed and rear. Do you see the difference? My degrees, my educational pieces of paper are not human beings. My job is not a human being. My career ambitions and goals and all of those things are not human beings. That's the difference. What I'm fast seeing is like this baby boomer level of entitlement that a lot of women are gaining as a result of movements like the child-free movement and things like that. It's this entitlement to, well, if you can be happy without having kids, then why can't I be happy with children? No one is saying that. Don't be obtuse. No one is saying that at all. What we're saying instead is, will the child be happy? Because you'll be happy. And yeah, the child is happy ages 0 to 5 because they don't know any better. But do you have a plan for this child's future outside of just providing love? Outside of just providing hugs and kisses? Do you have a plan for this child when the child is no longer a child and they're a teenager, then they're an adult? Now what? Then I also see a lot of women saying, oh, well, that's where the community will step in. The community will help me. And I'm going to hover my hand above your hand when I say this. The community right now that you're relying on is being...
She do a lot. She's not wrong on this particular point in that you need to have a plan and you need to rear your child. And I'm going to link back in the description of the video back to the content creator because I always like to give credit regardless of whether I agree with her or not. But she's doing a lot. And I'm going to hover my hand. See, usually people saying, I'm going to hold your hand when I say this, baby girl, or I'm going to hold your hand when I say this. I'm going to hover my hand above. Don't be obtuse. And again, nobody is criticizing you, leveraging your education in order to communicate effectively and use all of the big words. I feel you. Straight up. I feel you. Good job. Your ability to communicate and use words in its proper context is admirable. Okay, it's admirable. However, it's not necessary. You can talk regular, and I think that your message would better resonate with people if you actually just, all right, let me get off of that part. Let me just speak to her talking points. She's not wrong in that we do need to make sure that our children are being raised in an environment where we're planning for their future and we making adjustments accordingly. I will also say, though, on top of that, let me add to it, that you can't always plan for layoffs. You can't plan for losing a job. You can't plan for life events. You can't always plan for those circumstances. So again, I think that if you are very, very intentional and you align yourself with a group of people that's going in the direction that you're going in, and we don't always need a community to help us. We need a community to help us with our children. We need a community to help us vet the person that we wind up having children with. That's the difference. Like, don't become so gung-ho on trying to decenter men to where you then try to make an argument based off of your education and say, well, these aren't children, these are just pieces of paper. Don't become so gung-ho on decentering and trying to blame things off of, oh man, patriarchy is bad and bad man orange inside of the White House and all of this stuff. Don't become that bitter towards people to where you just absolutely positively believe that women having children is a bad thing. It's not. And you don't have to be rich to do so. And the economy is not bad at all to where we then have to completely remove ourselves from having children. As a matter of fact, I will make the argument that we are in a great reset that then puts women in a rightful place to be in the home rearing their children, and you don't have to go and chase a career while you're doing so. We need to get back to the cultural norms that make us traditional, and then ultimately, when our households and our families were more together, better put together, we had wealth circulating in the community and so on and so forth. Let's continue to hear whatever it is that she got to say.
Being deported by ICE. The community that you're so sure will exist, the community that goes out drinking with you, that has parties with you, that socializes with you, they're your community for those social casual events. That does not mean that they're signing up to be your co-parent because you didn't plan accordingly. That community is also suffering and struggling under the same systemic oppressive institutions and systems that you're suffering and struggling under. So kind of, expecting that this community is going to be there for you, no questions asked, while you rear a human being is kind of fucked up entitlement on your part. It really is. No matter how we try to spin it, no matter what social media will tell you, we still live in an extremely patriarchal and extremely racist society, now more so than ever before. And I don't see what the hesitation is in accepting that. Well, I want to be happy. Well, I've always wanted motherhood. That's selfish. You realize that's selfish, right? No matter how you try to, what kind of language you try to couch that in, you understand that that's an inherently selfish decision. Do you have health insurance? If God forbid, let's say this, do you have health insurance to provide for the child if the child is born with certain birth defects? Are you prepared for that? Okay, you have a romantic partner now. Are you prepared for if that romantic partner is in an accident or if they die?
Again, the problem with women like this is that they conflate too many things in order to try to justify why they're saying what they're saying. And then they mix in right points and wrong points. And then they make this circular argument. And then they come back to the front of the congregation and say, but am I right, though? You're right, but for the wrong reasons. Y'all let me know what y'all think inside of the chat. Women like this are exhausting. Again, I like to link back to the content creator to give credit. Make sure y'all tap into the Patreon. Link is in the description. Also, Teach Henley. 40% off your first order plus 20% off of life. I love you. I appreciate you. I'm going to holler at you guys later. Peace.